And the slide show the common adulteration. Adulteration means cheating. And then if we don't have a good control system, good quality evaluation, then some farmer may add water into milk to increase the volume, for example, or to do something else. And what they normally do, they add water. They add water to increase the quantity, or they add an alkaline to reduce the acidity. If they leave milk at room temperature for a while, it's become acidic, it's become sour by natural fermentation, and then they use alkaline to neutralize the acidity, to cheat the freshness, okay, to increase the pH. Or some farmers, this is not in Vietnam, so because we don't have a tradition of eating fat from milk. But in other countries, they may do skimming off, mean they take a part of cream layer from the milk. Then they sell the rest, and the rest has less fat content, for example. And then they keep this for cooking. But in Vietnam, we do not use cream or butter a lot for cooking. And this happened in China several years ago. They add melamine into raw milk. Melamine, this is the chemical. One molecule had 6 atoms of nitrogen, a lot nitrogen. They add this to cheat the protein content. Okay, so they dilute the milk with water, and then they add this to increase the nitrogen content. And the company, when they buy this milk, they analyze protein through analyzing nitrogen, because there's a method, the Keldan method, if you know. We measure the nitrogen and we multiply by a factor 6.35, for example, and then we have the protein content for milk. And then some cheaters actually was intelligent. They diluted with water and they add this component, and the company analyzed nitrogen and they see a lot of nitrogen, and they thought that was protein, but actually not. And then this got a very big issue in China. Maybe thousands of kids were hospitalized because of this. It will impact the kidneys of the children, actually. It's quite a big issue several years ago, if you have heard. And then what then we can do? What are then the possible tests that we can apply to determine if there are adulteration inside, if they're cheating inside? So if we measure the fat content and we measure the fat content, we measure the density sample, and this is quite simple to do. If the fat content is lower than normal, if the density is higher than normal, the fat is lower than normal, why the density is higher than normal, then you can suspect that they do skimming off, meaning they already remove part of fat. When we remove the fat, the remaining will have higher density. We already discussed this in chapter 4. Okay, and then but if the fat is lower than normal, why the density is also lower than normal, then we may suspect that they have added water into the milk. Or if the acidity is too low, titratable acidity is too low. What is titratable? Acidity can be determined by measuring pH, but when you measure pH, it looks normal, but when you do titration, for example, you use a solution of sodium hydroxide to do titration, and then you see that the acidity is too low, maybe it's lower than 0.1% of lactic acids, then it can suggest that this milk has been added with an alkaline, because milk had a certain acidity already. Should not be too. Yes, so we are done with the first part, how milk is collected, how milk is stored at the factory, how it is transported to the factory, and then how it is received into the factory. When they receive the raw milk into the factory, normally they will store for a while before processing. And for storing for a while before processing, they have to apply a mild heat treatment, which is called thermization.